I have a confession to make. I play World of Warcraft as a cozy game. I love collecting pets, fishing, hunting for mounts. That's just my preferred play style. But when you look for content about these elements of the game, it's really hard to find anything. When you search online on YouTube or TikTok or wherever for World of Warcraft content, most of the content that you find is for optimizing your high level gameplay. So things like dungeon guides or raiding guides, news, how to maximize the money that you get, which is all great, like well and good. I'm not trying to knock that type of content at all, but where is the content for my girlies? My cozy girlies who just want to get lost in a gorgeous world and do cute little things with their cute little character. So I took to TikTok and I posted this. I'm gonna die on this hill, but World of Warcraft is a cozy game. It just is, if you play it that way. Do you know what I spent a lot of my time in World of Warcraft doing? Customizing my character, finding unique pets and appearances, fishing, and making up stories in my head about how all of the hot NPCs are in love with me. I was blown away by the response, and I was so excited to see that there were so many people like me who played the game like this, and not only that, were interested in playing the game for the first time, knowing that you could play this way. So I decided to make a video series about World of Warcraft, but looking at it from a cozy gamer's perspective. We're going to be breaking down everything, and this video specifically is focusing on the very basics of what World of Warcraft is and how to get started. I do think that one of the main barriers for entry in this game is the learning curve, and sadly there is a lot of gatekeeping in this community, but not here. This video series is for the cozy girlies and anyone who is looking to get into World of Warcraft for the first time and play in a more casual way. I have lots of exciting content planned for this series, but this video is the very first one, which is going to be the very basics of what World of Warcraft is and how to get started. In WoW, you are in the world of Azeroth, and you play the role of a champion in this conflict-ridden world. Literally, there is always some sort of catastrophic world-ending conflict happening. You make a character, and then you level that character, so gain levels over time until you get to the max level, which is currently 70. In order to level, you do quests given to you by the various NPCs or non-player characters throughout the world, and leveling is really how you get the story of the game. If you read all of the text on the quest that you're given and you pay attention to what it is you're actually doing, you will get a lot of information about what exactly your role is in these very important events. This type of content, as well as some other types of content that we'll talk about later, is often called outdoor content because most of it takes place outside. The max level, which like I said is currently 70, goes up 10 levels every time a pack is released. So there's an expansion pack coming next year, which will raise the level cap to level 80. At that point, everybody who gets that new expansion is going to have to level their characters 10 levels at least. If they're starting with a level 70 character, everyone will have to level and get their character to level 80. And in those levels is where they will actually experience most of, there's some that will come later, but that's where you experience most of what the basic story is for that pack. Now, once you're max level, you're not done with the game by any means. In fact, this is when a lot of people say that the real game starts. Most of what people do at max level is dungeons or raids or PvP, which is player versus player, which would be literally fighting other players to see who wins. Dungeons are special areas that you run through with 4 people where your objective is to kill the bosses, and there's usually around 5 or 6. The bosses will drop loot, and there's usually one big boss at the end. They're always connected to the main story in some way, and you'll often get a quest to complete a dungeon, usually as the culmination of a quest line. So for example, you've been doing quests dealing with the fallout of a rise of a big bad, and now it's time to go face that big bad head on. These have typically always had to have been done with other people, but this has recently changed, which again, we'll talk about later. There's different levels of difficulty of dungeons, the highest of which is called Mythic. When you finish a mythic dungeon, you will get a key for one of the dungeons in the expansion, which unlocks a slightly more difficult version of that dungeon, which this is called Mythic Plus. So it would look like Mythic plus 7, Mythic plus 13. The higher the number, the more difficult the dungeon is. What a lot of people spend their time doing in World of Warcraft is doing dungeons at higher and higher levels to see how high up they can go. Doing this also gets them better gear, which then helps them go higher, and it's just this cycle. A lot of people also do high level dungeons to get really good gear that helps them in a raid, which we'll talk about next. So a raid is like the real in game, and the highest level and the most serious players spend most of their time doing raids. A raid is similar to a dungeon, but it is bigger and harder. So you do a raid with 25 people, and there's usually 8 to 10-ish bosses. And again, you have all of the smaller bosses that are leading up to the big bad end of the raid boss. This is serious business, with groups and guilds and esports teams having full teams dedicated to completing raids. Like literally it's their full-time job. There's even a big event called the Race to World First, which is a race from the largest guilds in the world to see who can kill the final boss first whenever a new raid is released. And all of this leads me to my very first disclaimer, which is that while I do maintain that WoW can be played as a cozy game, I want to make it very clear that this is not a cozy game by definition. Even if you're not doing dungeons and raids, you will fight in this game. You will kill lots and lots of things. The intended in-game is the raids and dungeons, and playing in a cozy way is the exception. But we cozy WoW players are out there, which is why I want to dedicate time and effort to creating this community for us. So we know what World of Warcraft is basically all about. Let's talk about what cozy stuff there is to do in World of Warcraft. The number one thing is exploration. The world of Azeroth is huge, and it's beautiful and full of life and interesting people. As you do the various quests and the tasks that you want to do, you'll discover more and more of the world. I have such fond memories of my early leveling days when I was first introduced to everything that the world has to offer. Honestly, if I could just erase it all from my brain and start over fresh, I would. When I asked on my Twitter what things people find cozy about WoW, a bunch of people said various versions of exploring. Riding around on my mount exploring, zipping around on my dragon, which that's a whole other thing. I'll include it as part of exploration, but in the new expansion Dragonflight, they introduced something called dragon riding, which is awesome. So they have mounts that fly. They've been having that, but dragon riding is a specific type of flying, which is a lot faster. It's a lot more like complex. You can do fast dives and you can glide. And Dragonflight in general is just an extremely gorgeous pack. And so one of my favorite things to do when I play Dragonflight is just to ride around on my dragon and try to go up into really high places like mountainous areas and just look out over the landscape. And it's so beautiful. And I set up little photo shoots. I get my character looking all cute and set up photo shoots. It's really, really fun. The next thing is character customization. There's a lot of different types of characters that you can create with lots of awesome character customization options. And you can find barbers throughout the world, so you can change up your look whenever you want. Plus, there are customization options that you can unlock by getting achievements or finishing certain quest lines, which is a really awesome way to showcase where you've been and what you've accomplished in the game. It also can be really good from like an RP perspective. So if you're the type of person that likes to create stories about your character while you're playing, whether that's just like in your head or whether you're actually like writing it down in any way, these customization options can be really satisfying as kind of like a role-playing option. The next thing is one of my personal favorites, which is battle pets. These are small little pets that you can collect through various methods throughout the world. You can have them follow you around as a purely aesthetic thing, or you can do pet battles, which is a Pokemon type battle where your pet can battle other pets, and you can either battle pets that you find in the wild, or they have battle pet trainers kind of scattered throughout the world, which will have, these more high level type pets that you can battle. When you battle pets that you find in the world, you can capture them, and then you can increase your collection of pets, and then by doing battles you can raise the level of those pets. When you battle pet trainers, you can earn tokens, which you can use to purchase more pets and other supplies and things like that. It's really fun. There's a lot of really cool pets that you can collect, and this is just another way to get to see a lot of the world, because a lot of times I want to go find a particular battle pet, or I want to find a particular trainer, and so it'll kind of force me to go travel to a part of the world that I wouldn't necessarily be in because it's not relevant to like the current storyline, but it's still out there. And so you can go and see a lot of the world that way, which is really cool too. Another thing that I think is cozy that people love to do, and this one I feel like is like pretty much everybody in the game does this, but I think it's one of the more cozy things to do, is to collect transmog. Transmog is short for transmogrification, which is the term for changing the appearance of your gear. When you collect a piece of gear, whether it's given to you from a quest, or it drops from a boss, or it can just drop from some random thing out in the world, when you put it on, you gain the stats associated with it as long as you're wearing that piece of gear. But when you pick it up, you collect the appearance of it forever, and that actually goes across all of your account. So if you have multiple characters, when you collect a piece of gear's appearance, then that appearance can be then applied to any of your other characters. There are some certain limitations depending on what type of character you have. For now, that's also something that's changing in the future. So basically, if you find a piece of armor that you like the look of, you can apply that appearance to any piece of armor that you have. So you maintain the stats of the ugly armor, but you still look great. So what a lot of people do in the game is they go out and they do content that they know will get them a piece of armor that they like the look of, even if it's a far lower level than what they actually are wearing or need to be wearing. But they do that just so that they can collect the appearance. So there's entire websites dedicated to like looking at different pieces of armors and the appearance of them, people putting combinations of armors together, and then it'll tell you how to go get it. And so people will go out, they'll try to collect the appearance so that they can look a certain way they want. It's just a dress-up game. It's a dress-up game. Another thing that I absolutely love to do is collecting mounts. Mounts are animals and other things, objects, etc. that you can ride. There are hundreds of them in the game, and you can get them in all sorts of different ways. So people like to go out and collect those. There's also a website that has a list of all of the different mounts, and so I like to just like peruse there, pick what I want, and then figure out how to go get it. And then I'll spend my time going out trying to get that. Collecting hunter pets is also very, very cozy. So hunter is one of the classes that you can play in the game. We'll talk about that later in this video. They are a very, very special class because they fight with pets. When you start with a certain pet, but then you can actually tame pets that you find out in the world and get those to fight alongside you. They have stables where you can board your pets, and so you can actually build up a pretty big collection. So one of my personal favorite things to do is to travel all across Azeroth to find the certain pets that I want to tame for my collection. And what's even more fun when you get into it is you can make these little like matching sets where a lot of times a battle pet and a hunter pet will look good together. For example, I have one that is a white fox, and then the battle pet that I have is a white fox cub. And so they look really good together. And then you can also get armor that kind of matches the vibe, and you can create this whole aesthetic that you want to have with your character, with your hunter pets and your battle pets and your transmog. It's really fun. Druids are a very special class as well because they can take on the form of different animals, and you can get new versions of those forms through various types of content. So for a druid, collecting forms for your druid is also something really fun to do. Professions, I think, are also very cozy. These really are the closest the game ever feels to being like a farm sim or a management game. There's a lot of different professions that you can do, and there's two types of professions. professions. So the first one is a primary profession, and these are split into gathering professions and production professions. I think I'm going to cover productions in more depth in a later video. This is kind of just like the broad introduction. But for primary professions, you can have 2 per character. Gathering professions are things like herbalism, so you spend time like going out and gathering herbs and things like that. There's also mining and skinning, so like, related to hunting. And then for the production professions, you have blacksmithing, enchanting, doing inscriptions, things like that. This is also a way that people like to earn money in the game, which is a whole other thing. There is a very robust in-game economy where people choose to specialize and spend their time doing certain things like this. And then there's an auction house where they can go and sell the things that they create through professions. And so if somebody needs something in particular from a blacksmith, but they don't have the blacksmithing skill themselves, they can go in and purchase whatever it is from the auction house. And so you can earn money that way. And then for secondary professions, these are things that everybody can do no matter what. So these are archaeology, cooking, and fishing. Fishing is my personal favorite. I am definitely going to make a whole video just on fishing. I love fishing in World of Warcraft. It's very easy. There's not a complicated mini game or anything like that. But honestly, I think it's just a really great way to slow down a little bit and really enjoy the world. And if you're looking to gain certain achievements about fishing, it will take you all over the world of Azeroth, which is really cool. This section is going to be your getting started guide. So we're going to go through the process of getting started so that you know everything that you need to know. The first thing we're going to talk about is what all of this is going to cost you, the different tiers that you can have, and what you're going to get in each of those tiers. So when you're looking at getting started with World of Warcraft, the good news is that there is a free trial. So you can play for free up to a certain point to see if you like the game. You can try out different classes and different races to see which one you like, if there's something you really jive with, and that is going to be included with the free trial. If you want to play beyond level 20, you're going to need to pay for a subscription. A subscription is $14.99 a month if you're paying a month at a time, and it is cheaper on a month-to-month basis if you pay in advance. So with the subscription, you get unrestricted access to all of the social features. You get to play beyond level 20. You get to experience the ever-growing Warcraft universe, whatever that means. And you get access to WoW Classic, which is a whole other thing, but they basically created a version of World of Warcraft, which is like what it was like at the very beginning when World of Warcraft first started. The next highest tier is purchasing the current expansion, which at this point is called the War Within. The War Within is not actually released yet. The current expansion is the Dragonflight expansion, but if you purchased it now, you would be effectively pre-purchasing the War Within expansion. So with this, you get all of the things in the subscription, plus you get access to the Dragonflight expansion. So if you don't purchase this, you can only go up to level 60, and you can't actually play through that Dragonflight expansion, which would take you from level 60 to level 70. And you also get a character boost. A character boost would allow you to skip all of the leveling process and just have a character at level 60 automatically, which I don't recommend doing if you're brand new to World of Warcraft. I definitely think that you need to level a character yourself at least one time, and then you can boost characters later when you know exactly what you want. The War Within has different editions as well. There's the Epic Edition for $89.99, the Heroic Edition for $69.99, and the Base Edition for $49.99. So what I would basically recommend doing is just taking it one at a time. So start at the free trial, see if you like it, and then if you do like it, get yourself the subscription to see if this is something that you want to continue playing long term. That will get you hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of content just with the subscription. If you level your character all the way to level 60 and you really love it and you want to keep playing, then I would definitely recommend going ahead and grabbing this so that you can play the Dragonflight expansion, which is excellent. in my opinion. If you decide you want to start the free trial, you're going to have to create an account and download the Blizzard launcher. I'm going to have a link to this website in the description so that you can get to it easily, but I would just click on download game. This will take you to a download page where you can download the game. Once you download the game, you'll have to make an account and log in. It will guide you through that entire process, and it's pretty straightforward. This is what it looks like when you first launch the game with your character. In order to play, I would just click enter world. By the way, fun fact, this is the OG Leylandria. All of my channels were named after this character because when I first started creating content, I thought that maybe I was going to be focusing on creating World of Warcraft content. I then shifted later into the cozy gaming content, but I was making a bit of WoW content at the very beginning. I shifted into cozy game content, but just kept the name Leylandria because it had stuck. And now I'm back making World of Warcraft content, and even better, cozy World of Warcraft content. So this is a really cool full circle moment for me, and I love this character very much. When you're creating a new character, you're gonna have a lot of different choices to make. We're gonna break it all down. First thing that you need to choose is whether you want to play Alliance or whether you want to play Horde. So when you hover over Alliance and Horde, it will give you a little bit of information about what that means. These are basically the two different factions on Azeroth, and they are rival factions. Lore-wise, the Alliance and Horde have been in conflict at times and in uneasy alliances at times for a very long time. Before it was an MMO, there was Warcraft 1, 2, and 3. In Warcraft 1 and 2, the Horde were seen as the irredeemable baddies. So you played as someone in the Alliance and you were very actively fighting against the Horde, who were shown as these, irredeemable monsters. But in Warcraft 3, they united with the Alliance to fight a common enemy, which is called the Burning Legion, which is basically like demons from space. At this point, they focused a lot more on the story of the Horde, and they began to be portrayed in a way that was very similar to the Alliance. Basically just a group of people fighting for acceptance and survival on this very harsh world. Since then, throughout the expansions of the game, they have sometimes been at war and sometimes been in an uneasy alliance against a common foe. Now, from a gameplay perspective, between Alliance and Horde, your choice does also matter and will affect the game that you play. As you can see here, it will affect the race of people that you can play. So, for example, you cannot play a human on the Horde. If you want to be a human, you have to be in the Alliance, and that is true for almost everybody, except there are a couple of races that you could play that you could potentially choose both. So, for example, if you wanted to be a Pandaren, you could be a Pandaren on the Alliance or the Horde. Same thing with the Drakthir. Your starting areas may potentially be different depending on what your choice is. There's a lot of areas in the game where one faction can access it freely and the other faction can't. The NPCs that you interact with are going to be different as well, and the capital city is going to be different for each one. So for the Alliance, the capital city is Stormwind, and for the Horde, the capital city is Orgrimmar. For a lot of the expansions, especially the ones where the factions are more at odds, you'll be seeing a certain side of the story depending on what faction you're on. And last but definitely not least, if there is a particular person that is getting you into the game that you want to play with, you probably want to be on the same faction as them. While there is some crossplay between factions, and honestly, the crossplay is getting more and more robust all the time, so they are consistently putting in new ways for the factions to play together instead of it being as separate as it used to be. But for the most part, it's going to be a lot easier to play with somebody else if you are on the same faction as them. Again, there are exceptions. You definitely can play with somebody who's on a different faction than you, but it is going to be a little bit more limited. The next thing that you're going to need to pick is your race and class. Your race is the type of person that you are. So there are options like human, dwarf, night elf on the Alliance side, orc, troll, and blood elf on the horde side. Mechanically speaking, this is not going to affect your gameplay in a huge way. Each race will have one special racial ability, but unless you're trying to be super strategic with really high end level content, it's not really gonna affect you that much. Your race obviously affects your aesthetics, but there are also race specific quests and items, and each race has its own particular lore that it comes into the game with. Your class, on the other hand, will affect your game very much. It is basically the core of how you play, what your character does, how they fight, whether you want to fight with magic, or if you want to fight up close with a sword or daggers, or if you want to fight with a bow and arrow a little bit farther away. All of these things are going to be decided by your class. I definitely think that it does take some trial and error to figure out which class you really love playing, and I would definitely encourage you to try out different things. The good thing about the free trial is that it does allow you to freely pick which class you want to try, so you can really get a feel for what works for you. So try out what looks interesting to you, and don't be afraid to try a bunch of different things. Another thing that is important to note is that for lore reasons, not every race can be every class. So all of the different types of people have a unique lore, and the developers have decided that based on the lore, certain things don't make sense for certain characters. So for example, you cannot be an undead druid. Only certain characters really can be druids. One of the most exclusive classes, I guess, is the demon hunter. Only elves can be demon hunters. So if you want to be a demon hunter, you have to be a night elf if you want to be on Alliance, or you have to be a blood elf if you want to be on Horde. You'll also have to pick a realm, which is like a server to play on. This is a super important decision as it can impact who you can see and interact with in the world. So this is what you can and can't do when you're on a different realm with somebody. So you can join with them in a party, so like grouping up, you can quest together, you can join PvP battlegrounds with them, you can queue for dungeons with them, and you can raid on normal and heroic. But what you cannot do at the current time is you cannot trade with somebody on a different realm than you, and you can't be in a guild with somebody that is on a different realm than you. Although that is going to be changing in the next expansion in the War Within. They're going to allow cross-realm guilds, which is very exciting. A good rule of thumb is to try to get on a server with as high of a population as you can. The higher the population of your server, the easier it is going to be to find people to play with, to match with people if you're having to form groups for things. The world is just going to be a lot more populated, which in an MMO is a good thing. Another consideration is if you want to be on an RP server or a role-playing server. These are servers where a very high portion of the population are interested in role-playing their character, which can entail a lot of different things like making sure that your character has a rich backstory, only taking actions with your character that would match the lore really well, talking to people as your character. It's a very involved and rich segment of the World of Warcraft population. I personally don't know that much about it, so I don't want to speak on it too much. But if you're potentially interested in role-playing within World of Warcraft, I would definitely recommend going and having a little Google about it and seeing if a role-playing server is going to be right for you. I personally play on Dalaran. Conventional wisdom typically recommends Illidan and Mal'Ganis if you're playing a Horde character, and Area 52 and Storm Range if you're playing an Alliance character. But unfortunately, it looks like at the moment those are full, which means you can't make any new characters on there. So you might need to find one of these that just has a high population. And there you have it. That is the basics of getting started. If you're on the free trial, once you create your character, you will get dropped into the Exiles Reach scenario where you'll immediately be given tutorial type quests about how to use your character, and you can play through that. If you're choosing to go on this journey, I am so excited for you, and I would love to help you out as much as I can. So you can leave a comment here if you have any questions about anything in particular, or if there's a certain piece of what I said that you would like me to expand upon and make more videos about. I also recommend my Discord server. And my Discord server, we have a dedicated channel for World of Warcraft where we play together. So if you're looking for a community of people who are interested in playing World of Warcraft in a cozy way, the Discord is going to be a great place to start. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Reminder that I have a podcast called The Gamer's Hearth where I talk about all sorts of topics surrounding cozy gaming. I stream on Twitch. You can check me over there on twitch.tv/Laylindria. And don't forget to check in the description for all the links of things that I talked about here. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!